The searing African sun beat down on the parched earth, casting long, distorted shadows as a faint, desperate mewling echoed through the sparse brush. On shaky, impossibly small legs, a bobcat kitten, no bigger than a human hand, stumbled through the dry grass. Its fur, a mottled pattern of tawny browns and blacks, was matted with dust, and its eyes, a clouded, uncertain blue, squinted against the harsh light. Each tiny cry was a testament to its vulnerability, a raw sound of abandonment that seemed to hang heavy in the still air. Alone, utterly alone, with no sign of its mother, the kitten's existence was a precarious whisper against the vast, unforgiving landscape. Every rustle of leaves, every distant call of a bird, held the potential for a new, unseen danger, a silent predator lurking just beyond the edge of its limited world. It was a picture of pure, unadulterated fragility, a life hanging by the thinnest of threads, moments away from succumbing to the harsh realities of the wild. Miles away, nestled in a small, self-sufficient sanctuary carved out of the rugged African terrain, lived Sarah. Her world was one of quiet dedication, a tapestry woven from the threads of compassion and an unwavering commitment to the continent's struggling wildlife. Sarah wasn't just a rescuer. She was an architect of second chances, a guardian of the vulnerable. Originally from the United States, she had traded the clamor of urban life for the profound solitude and untamed beauty of this remote corner of Africa, driven by an innate desire to heal and protect. Her days consisted of tracking injured gazelles, nursing orphaned primates back to health, and conducting watchful patrols against the ever-present threat of human encroachment. The sanctuary, a collection of sturdy, unpretentious structures and carefully designed enclosures, was her life's work, a testament to her belief that every creature, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, deserved a chance at life. She lived a life deeply intertwined with the rhythms of the natural world, understanding its unspoken language, its subtle warnings, and its profound beauty. The constant hum of insects, the distant roar of a lion, the scent of acacia blossoms after a rare rain. These were the symphonies of her existence, each note a reminder of why she chose this path. The precarious existence of the tiny bobcat kitten was about to intersect with Sarah's dedicated world. A local villager, a seasoned hunter whose eyes missed nothing in the bush, stumbled upon the distressed kitten. He knew instinctively that its mother was gone, a likely casualty of a recent devastating bushfire that had swept through the area, or, perhaps, another unfortunate victim of the relentless poaching that plagued these lands. He had seen enough to recognize the signs of a life about to flicker out. The kitten was a skeletal shadow of what it should be, its ribs protruding starkly beneath its thin fur, its cries weak and hoarse from dehydration and hunger. It was a miracle it had survived this long. He knew of Sarah, the foreign woman who dedicated her life to injured animals, and he understood that this particular creature, so small and utterly defenseless, stood no chance of survival on its own. With a gentle, practiced hand, he scooped up the shivering bundle, feeling the frantic beat of its tiny heart against his palm, and set off on the long trek to Sarah's sanctuary, hoping against hope that his journey wouldn't be in vain. The kitten's condition was critical, its energy reserves depleted, its spirit bordering on resignation. This tiny, abandoned bobcat kitten's journey is just beginning, a testament to resilience and the extraordinary bonds that can form in the most unexpected places. You won't want to miss a single moment of this heartwarming tale. Make sure to hit that subscribe button to follow every step of this kitten's incredible path to recovery and witness the surprising friendships that unfold. Stay tuned for more heartwarming animal rescue stories and join us as we embark on this remarkable adventure. Sarah carefully transported the tiny, shivering bobcat kitten back to her sanctuary. The small creature nestled in a soft blanket within a carrier. The journey was tense, each bump in the dirt track feeling like a jolt to Whisper's fragile existence. Once inside the quiet confines of her clinic, Sarah's initial relief quickly gave way to a new wave of concern. Despite her decades of experience rehabilitating everything from orphaned baboons to injured pangolins, this bobcat presented a unique and intensely challenging predicament. Bobcats, even as kittens, carry an intrinsic wildness, a deeply ingrained skittishness that makes human interaction a constant battle against their natural instincts. Whisper, true to her species, was no exception. The kitten, barely larger than Sarah's hand, was a bundle of raw fear. She had been named Whisper due to her barely audible, desperate cries when found. But now she was silent, save for the occasional hiss when Sarah attempted to approach. She cowered in the back of her specially prepared enclosure, a small, insulated space designed to mimic a natural den. Sarah had lined it with soft towels, placed a comforting heat lamp above, and filled a miniature dish with a specialized high-calorie formula designed for wild carnivore infants. But Whisper refused to acknowledge any of it. Her wide, amber eyes, usually so captivating in their innocence, were instead clouded with terror, reflecting Sarah's worried face like twin, distressed mirrors. This fear, while completely understandable, became the primary antagonist in Whisper's fight for survival. It wasn't a malicious resistance, but a pure, unadulterated self-preservation mechanism that threatened to extinguish her tiny flame. When Sarah tried to gently coax her out, Whisper would flail, a surprisingly strong and determined little force against her much larger rescuer. Tiny claws, surprisingly sharp, would scrabble against Sarah's gloved hands, and though they caused no real harm, they were a clear declaration. Stay away. She'd bite, a sharp, instinctive nip that spoke volumes of her desperate need for space, then quickly retreat, burying herself deeper into the corner, a tiny, trembling shadow. Feeding was nearly impossible. The specialized formula, vital for her nourishment, remained untouched. Sarah tried syringing it directly into her mouth, a technique that often worked with other reluctant orphans. But Whisper would clamp her jaws shut, her body stiffening in defiance. Each attempt was met with increased agitation, further stressing the already weak kitten. Sarah tried everything her extensive knowledge offered. She experimented with different feeding techniques, attempting to present the formula on a shallow dish, then on her finger, even adding a tiny amount of meat paste to tempt her palate. Nothing worked. She adjusted the den's environment, making it even more secluded, darker, quieter, hoping to reduce the sensory overload that might be overwhelming the kitten. She played soft, calming nature sounds, thinking perhaps the familiar hum of the wild might offer some comfort. Days blurred into a cycle of desperate attempts and disheartening failures. Whisper's already fragile condition began to decline further. Her small frame grew thinner, her movements more lethargic, the spark in her wild eyes dimming with each passing hour of refusal. Sarah watched, her heart aching, as the kitten's chances of survival dwindled, the wild instincts that should have protected her now stubbornly pushing her closer to the brink. The solitude of her sanctuary felt heavier than usual, each quiet moment punctuated by the unspoken question. How much longer could this tiny bobcat hold on? The odds, it seemed, were stacking against them both. Whisper's condition continued to worsen with an alarming swiftness. The initial refusal to eat, once a frustrating hurdle, had now spiraled into a much graver concern. Her tiny body, already so frail, began to develop a severe infection, a direct consequence of her weakened immune system and the immense stress she was constantly under. Sarah, with years of experience under her belt, recognized the telltale signs: the dullness in her eyes, the lethargy that deepened with each passing hour, the faint, raspy breathing that sent shivers down Sarah's spine. It was a race against time, one that Sarah felt she was rapidly losing. The sterile environment, the meticulous feeding attempts, the quiet, secluded den, none of it seemed to penetrate the wall of fear and wildness Whisper had erected around herself. Medicines could fight the infection, but they couldn't mend a broken spirit, nor could they force sustenance into a creature terrified of the hand that offered it. Sarah sat beside the small enclosure, her heart heavy, watching the kitten shiver. She understood that Whisper needed more than just physical care. She craved a profound emotional comfort, a sense of security that a human, no matter how dedicated, struggled to provide. There was a primal need for warmth, for the soft, reassuring presence of another of her kind, or at least a creature that spoke the same silent language of comfort. Sarah's gentle touch, her soft reassurances, were met with flinching and hissing, an understandable response from a wild animal whose world had been turned upside down. The stark reality was that she couldn't replicate the instinctive solace a mother would offer. The deep, aching loneliness that radiated from Whisper was palpable, and it chipped away at Sarah's resolve, making her question if she was truly capable of saving this tiny life. It was during one of these somber observations that an unexpected solution began to emerge, slowly, almost imperceptibly at first. Milo, Sarah's housecat, a gentle older tabby whose usual routine involved long naps in sunbeams and the occasional dignified hunt for an errant insect, started showing an unusual interest in Whisper's plight. Milo, himself a rescue from Sarah's earlier life in the United States, was a creature of habit and quiet contemplation. He rarely ventured near the rescue animals, respecting the invisible boundaries Sarah had set for their well-being. But now, he could be seen watching from a distance, perched on a high shelf or peeking around a doorway, his amber eyes fixed on the small, huddled form within the enclosure. Not with predatory interest, but with a gaze that seemed to hold a strange mix of curiosity and concern. Sarah initially paid it little mind, attributing it to mere feline curiosity. However, Milo's vigil became more frequent, more intentional. He'd sit for long stretches, utterly still, simply observing. One afternoon, as Whisper lay particularly listless, barely responding to Sarah's coaxing, Milo took a step beyond his usual perimeter. He descended from his perch, moving with a slinking, deliberate grace, and approached Whisper's enclosure. Sarah held her breath, ready to intervene if the Bobcat kitten became unduly stressed. But Whisper, surprisingly, didn't react with her usual explosive fear. Instead of lunging or hissing, she lifted her tiny head, her ears swiveling slightly. Her big, uncertain eyes, clouded with illness and apprehension, watched Milo. There was a flicker, not of terror, but of curiosity. A fleeting moment of engagement that hadn't been present before. Milo, in turn, sat down a respectful distance from the bars, his tail giving a slow, almost imperceptible twitch. He simply looked at her, his posture conveying a silent, patient understanding. It was their first, tentative interaction, a fragile spark in the overwhelming darkness that had enveloped Whisper. Milo's silent vigil at the enclosure became a daily ritual, a testament to an unspoken connection forming between the domestic tabby and the wild Bobcat kitten. Sarah watched, fascinated and cautiously optimistic, as Milo slowly and patiently worked to gain Whisper's trust. Each day, he would position himself a little closer, sometimes just a paw length away from the wire mesh, his purr a low, steady rumble that vibrated through the air. It was a sound of profound contentment, a non-threatening overture that seemed to soothe Whisper in a way human voices never could. He would often lie down, stretching out languidly, his body language communicating absolute peace and safety. Sarah noticed Whisper's tense little body start to relax during these interactions. Her breathing became less ragged, and her eyes, though still wary, held less fear. After several days of this patient courtship, Sarah felt a small nudge of courage. The veterinary team had emphasized that Whisper needed constant reassurance and warmth, something a solitary human struggling with a frightened wild animal found difficult to provide around the clock. Carefully, under her watchful eye, Sarah allowed supervised contact. She unlatched the enclosure door, a small gate opening into a much larger world for Whisper. Milo, sensing the moment, remained still, his purr continuing, a low, comforting engine. Whisper, after a moment of frozen hesitation, tentatively poked her head out. Milo immediately began to groom himself, demonstrating what Sarah recognized as a calming displacement behavior, showing he meant no harm. Then, with an almost imperceptible shift, he turned his head and through the bars offered Whisper a gentle lick to her tiny forehead. It was a breakthrough moment that brought tears to Sarah's eyes. Whisper, instead of flinching or retreating, leaned into the touch, her small body trembling not from fear, but from something akin to yearning. She reciprocated with a tentative lick of her own to Milo's fur, a hesitant acceptance of this unexpected comfort. From that day forward, the bond solidified with astonishing speed. Sarah would carefully place Whisper outside her enclosure, always with Milo close by. The tabby, with an instinct Sarah couldn't have predicted, became a surrogate mother. He would gently pin Whisper down with a paw, not in aggression, but in an almost maternal scruffing, and begin to meticulously clean her, his rough tongue working over her matted fur. Whisper, for the first time since her rescue, allowed herself to be completely vulnerable. She would snuggle into Milo's soft, warm fur, burying her small head against his flank, absorbing his steady warmth and rhythmic purr. This constant, soothing presence was the missing piece of Whisper's recovery. The change was remarkable, almost instantaneous. The moment she found comfort in Milo's embrace, her appetite returned. She began to lap at the specialized formula with enthusiasm, no longer needing to be force-fed. Her eyes brightened, her fur gained a healthy sheen, and the infection that had threatened her life began to recede, expedited by her renewed will to live and the sheer biological boost that comfort provided. Milo became her shadow, her protector, her source of endless reassurance. He played with her, batting gently at her paws, teaching her the nuanced body language of feline interaction, skills that were crucial for her development. The unconventional family they formed was a daily spectacle of interspecies affection. Milo, the dignified housecat, would curl around the tiny Bobcat, radiating a calm acceptance that transcended their different species. He offered the constant, gentle presence the Bobcat Kitten desperately needed, fulfilling a profound maternal role he had never before been asked to play. This bond wasn't just heartwarming, it was a crucial turning point for Whisper's physical and emotional recovery. It was clear now that Whisper wasn't just surviving, she was thriving under the unexpected care of her tabby mother. Sarah understood that this unprecedented connection was not only saving Whisper's life but also preparing her, in ways Sarah alone could not, for the wild world she would one day return to. Weeks melted into months, and Whisper, under Milo's unwavering, gentle guardianship, transformed. The gaunt, trembling kitten that Sarah had carried into the sanctuary was now a robust, curious, and playful young bobcat, her coat gleaming with health. Their bond deepened with each passing day, becoming a silent symphony of interspecies affection. Milo, with the patience only a seasoned feline could possess, became Whisper's primary educator. He taught her the intricate art of cat communication, from the subtle flick of a tail to the nuanced vocalizations that conveyed comfort, warning, or playful invitation. He showed her how to groom herself meticulously, guiding her clumsy attempts with nudges and demonstrations, ensuring she understood the importance of cleanliness, a vital survival skill. Their days were filled with structured play, orchestrated by Milo. He'd bat at a dangling toy, encouraging Whisper to pounce, refining her coordination and predatory instincts. He'd lead her on mock hunts around the enclosed sanctuary, his slow, deliberate movements allowing her to mimic his stealthy stalk and explosive spring. These were not just games. They were foundational lessons in being a cat, skills that Whisper, having lost her biological mother so young, would never have learned otherwise. Sarah watched, often with a lump in her throat, as Milo, the domestic housecat, instinctually nurtured the wild bobcat, instilling in her the very essence of feline existence. It was a profound education, delivered with purrs and gentle nips, crucial for Whisper's development. Yet, amidst this heartwarming display of interspecies parenting, Sarah grappled with a growing ethical dilemma. The very success of Milo's unconventional upbringing presented a unique challenge. How could she ensure Whisper wouldn't become too domesticated? The ultimate goal, the guiding principle behind every rescue, was the successful release of the animal back into its natural habitat. A bobcat that relied on human or housecat companionship would be ill-equipped to survive the harsh realities of the African wilderness. Whisper's future depended on her wild instincts asserting themselves, on her understanding that she was a creature of the bush, not a pampered house pet. This careful balance between nurturing and encouraging independence weighed heavily on Sarah's mind. To address this, Sarah began to subtly shift Whisper's environment and daily routine. She introduced natural stimuli, carefully chosen to awaken the bobcat's innate wildness. She scattered scent trails of local prey animals around the sanctuary, encouraging Whisper to follow and investigate. She fashioned makeshift prey from feathers and bits of hide, hiding them in complex setups that required problem-solving and stealth to capture. The enclosure itself was enhanced with logs, rocks, and varying textures of foliage, mimicking the varied terrain Whisper would eventually encounter. She played recordings of natural African sounds, distant bird calls, rustling leaves, the low rumble of thunder, acclimating Whisper to the auditory landscape of her future home. Milo, ever the steadfast companion, was always close by during these sessions. He understood, in his own feline way, that these were important lessons. While he no longer actively participated in the hunts, he'd watch from a comfortable distance, his presence a constant, reassuring security blanket for Whisper. His role evolved from active teacher to silent mentor, a comforting anchor in Whisper's increasingly wild world. He symbolized the safe base from which she could explore, experiment, and ultimately embrace her true bobcat nature. Sarah observed that Whisper, emboldened by Milo's presence, exhibited more confidence in these new challenges, pushing her boundaries further each day, slowly shedding the last vestiges of her helpless kittenhood and stepping towards her destiny as a magnificent wild predator. The delicate dance between domestication and wilderness was being carefully choreographed, with Milo's silent support making all the difference. As Whisper continued to grow, A transformation began to unfold within her tiny frame. Her wild instincts, once suppressed by fear and vulnerability, started to assert themselves with increasing clarity and vigor. The soft, unsteady movements of a newborn bobcat kitten gave way to a more agile, deliberate grace. Sarah observed Whisper stalking imaginary prey among the tall grasses of her enclosure, her small body low to the ground, eyes fixed with intense concentration. She'd pounce on a fluttering leaf or a stray insect with remarkable accuracy, a miniature predator honing her innate skills. These burgeoning behaviors, the focused gaze, the twitching tail before a leap, the sudden bursts of energy followed by periods of watchful stillness, were undeniable signs. Whisper was not just growing, she was evolving, shedding the last vestiges of her fragile infancy and embracing her true, wild nature. It was a clear indication that she was ready for the next, crucial phase of her rehabilitation, a step closer to her destined return to the vast, untamed African landscape. Recognizing these powerful shifts, Sarah understood that the time for gradual separation was upon them. The bonds that had formed, especially between Whisper and Milo, were profound, but they could not become a permanent tether. Her ultimate goal was Whisper's successful reintegration into the wilderness, and that required a measured distancing from her human and feline caregivers. Sarah began by allowing Whisper more time in a larger, outdoor enclosure. This space, meticulously designed to mimic her natural habitat, featured varied terrain, climbing structures, and dense foliage for cover. It was a sensory-rich environment, preparing her for the complexities of the wild, and, crucially, it was a space where she could begin to assert her independence from Milo. Milo, ever the patient and understanding companion, adapted to the changing dynamics. He still visited, his purrs a comforting rumble that resonated through the enclosure, and he would often lie just outside the new, larger pen, a silent sentry. Yet, their interactions naturally became less frequent, less intense. Whisper, increasingly absorbed in exploring her expansive new world, would often greet Milo with a quick rub against the fence before darting off to investigate a rustling bush or a new scent. Milo seemed to sense the shift, recognizing that his surrogate daughter was growing up, her wild heart calling her towards a destiny he couldn't share. He would watch her with a wistful expression, occasionally letting out a soft chirrup as she disappeared into the undergrowth, a silent acknowledgement of the bittersweet journey they were both undertaking. For Sarah, this period was fraught with emotional strain. Witnessing the deepening independence in Whisper, while exhilarating, was also tinged with a profound sadness. The bond she shared with the bobcat kitten and the incredible unexpected partnership between Whisper and Milo had woven themselves into the fabric of her solitary life. The sanctuary, often a place of quiet diligence, had been transformed by the vibrant energy of their unique family. Now, contemplating the inevitable separation, a hollow ache began to form in her chest. Every playful pounce, every moment of shared peace between the bobcat and the housecat became a poignant reminder of what they would soon lose. It was a difficult, necessary sacrifice, she reminded herself daily, a testament to her commitment to Whisper's true well-being. Milo, in his own way, seemed to mirror her sentiments. He would often seek out Sarah in the evenings, settling onto her lap with a comforting weight, his slow blinks conveying a quiet understanding of the impending change. He seemed to grasp that this gradual withdrawal, this preparation for the wild, was not abandonment, but a final loving act to ensure Whisper's future. His wisdom, unspoken yet deeply felt, provided Sarah with a quiet strength, helping her navigate the emotional complexities of letting go. The day of Whisper's release dawned, a beautiful African morning painted with hues of rose and gold, yet it carried an undeniable weight of bittersweet finality. Sarah had meticulously planned every detail, selecting a sprawling, protected wilderness area that offered prime bobcat habitat, dense scrubland, rocky outcrops for shelter, and a reliable water source. The journey itself was quiet. Whisper nestled securely in a specialized transport crate, an unfamiliar calm settling over her. Sarah spoke to her softly, reassuring words that were as much for herself as for the young bobcat, her voice thick with a mixture of hope and a profound sense of loss. When they finally arrived, the air was still, thick with the scent of dry earth and wild sage. Sarah carefully positioned the crate, opening the small door. Whisper hesitated, a tiny shadow framed against the vast expanse of the bush. She peered out, her emerald eyes scanning the unfamiliar landscape, then turned her head, looking back towards Sarah, a silent question in her gaze. It was a fleeting moment, a microsecond of indecision, where the ties of comfort and care still vied with the primal call of the wild. But then, a rustle in a nearby thicket, the chirping of an unseen bird, and something shifted within the young bobcat. Her ears swiveled, her nose twitched, inhaling the rich tapestry of scents that promised freedom and instinct. Her wild instincts, honed by months of careful rehabilitation and the subtle guidance of Milo, began to assert their dominance. With a tentative step, Whisper emerged from the crate, her lithe body low to the ground. She took another step, then another, her paws silently padding on the loose soil. The hesitation vanished, replaced by an innate curiosity and confidence. She sniffed at a clump of grass, then rubbed her flank against a low-hanging branch, marking it with her scent, beginning the primal act of claiming her territory. She moved with an almost ethereal grace, a creature perfectly designed for this raw, untamed environment. Sarah watched, her heart a tangled knot of emotions, as Whisper explored her new surroundings. The bobcat's movements became more fluid, more assured, as if she were shedding the last vestiges of her captive past, embracing her true self with every stride. Slowly, Whisper ventured further, a small, yet powerful symbol of resilience against the backdrop of the African bush. Sarah remained hidden, observing from a distance, allowing the young bobcat the space and independence she needed for this crucial transition. It was a poignant moment of letting go, witnessing the culmination of months of tireless effort, of sleepless nights, and of an unlikely bond that had defied species and expectation. As Whisper disappeared into the dense canopy of acacias, a flash of tawny fur melting into the dappled sunlight, Sarah felt tears well up. They were not tears of sorrow, but of an overwhelming, profound joy. Joy that this tiny, abandoned creature, once on the brink of death, was now reclaiming her rightful place in the wild. She reflected on the incredible journey, the unexpected bond that had not only saved a life, but had also enriched her own. Milo's gentle presence, his unwavering patience, had been the catalyst, the unlikely hero in this extraordinary tale. Sarah knew that without him, Whisper would not have survived. The Housecat had provided more than just warmth and comfort. He had offered a lifeline to her wild spirit, nurturing it until it was robust enough to stand on its own. The silence of the wilderness settled around Sarah, a different kind of quiet now, filled not with the anticipation of care but with the echoes of a successful release. She took a deep breath, the scent of the wild filling her lungs, a silent prayer for Whisper's continued journey forming in her heart. she knew this was not an ending, but a new beginning. For both Whisper and for the memory of the extraordinary connection that had brought them to this point. The day of Whisper's release into the wild had been a whirlwind of emotions, a poignant letting go that left an indelible mark on Sarah's heart. Weeks turned into months, and the initial uncertainty surrounding Whisper's adaptation slowly faded, replaced by reassuring evidence of her successful reintegration. Remote cameras, strategically placed across the vast protected wilderness area, provided thrilling glimpses into her new life. Footage occasionally captured Whisper, a sleek, confident predator, stalking prey with a grace that spoke of instinct honed by practice. She was thriving, a testament to the patient care and unconventional upbringing she had received. Tracking collar data confirmed her wide-ranging explorations, her establishment of a territory, and her remarkable self-sufficiency. Whisper was not just surviving, she was flourishing, a true wild bobcat, exactly as nature intended her to be. Each piece of data, each grainy image, was a profound reassurance for Sarah, a silent confirmation that every difficult decision, every bittersweet moment of separation, had been worth it. Reflecting on the extraordinary journey, Sarah often found herself marveling at the sheer power of empathy and the surprising, transformative connections that could form between seemingly disparate species. The image of tiny, frightened Whisper nestled against Milo's warm fur remained etched in her memory, a vivid reminder of the Housecat's unsung heroism. Milo, in his quiet wisdom, had provided more than just warmth and comfort. He had offered a bridge back to life for a creature teetering on the brink. He taught Whisper the language of feline affection, the rhythm of play, and the subtle cues of comfort that allowed her to grow strong enough to embrace her wild heritage. Without Milo, Sarah knew, Whisper's story would have ended tragically. His gentle presence had been the catalyst, the unlikely anchor that grounded a wild spirit until it was ready to soar on its own. The sanctuary, now quieter without Whisper's pitter-patter and playful pounces, held a new kind of peace. Milo, now older and wiser, often settled onto Sarah's lap, their shared understanding of Whisper's success, a silent bond between them. The story of Whisper and Milo had become more than just a personal triumph. It had evolved into a powerful symbol of hope, a poignant narrative illustrating the potential for rehabilitation and the boundless capacity for connection across the animal kingdom. It inspired Sarah daily in her ongoing efforts, reminding her that every life, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, held immense value and deserved a chance. Their tale resonated deeply, demonstrating that sometimes the most unexpected teachers and the most unconventional families could forge paths to survival and freedom. This incredible journey, from a vulnerable orphaned kitten to a flourishing wild bobcat, fueled by the unlikely bond with a gentle housecat, was a testament to the resilience of nature and the profound impact of compassionate intervention. It highlighted the critical importance of wildlife conservation and rescue efforts around the globe, urging people to see the interconnectedness of all living beings. Sarah hoped that Whisper's story would encourage more individuals to support organizations dedicated to protecting endangered species and rehabilitating injured animals, reminding everyone that every effort, no matter how small, contributed to a larger, more vital cause. And so, we bring this amazing journey to a close. We want to extend our heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of you for joining us on Whisper's incredible adventure. Thank you for watching, for sharing in her struggles and triumphs, and for celebrating the extraordinary bond she forged with Milo. If this story touched your heart, please consider subscribing for more amazing animal stories, where every creature has a tale worth telling. Share your thoughts in the comments below. What was your favorite moment in Whisper and Milo's journey? And don't forget to check out our next video for another incredible journey of survival, courage, and unexpected friendships.